Welcome, guys. We've never tried this before. We're going to try it the first time. Some of you guys, some familiar faces I see from the last couple summers up on the top board. I'm Joe Favorito. I live in New Jersey. I teach at Columbia. I've been working in some area of sports or entertainment for over 30 years. And the great thing about this group is we're going to try and bring on guests as much as we can, hopefully every week, to talk about various areas of sports, media, entertainment. Hopefully at the same time, we would love to have your participation in what it is you'd like to hear from. We're going to try and talk about everything from ownership to law, media production, broadcasting. How do you run a league? How do you run a team? How do you get a job? And try and cover as many things as we can, as long as there's interest. So, the interest is, again, for anybody who's taken my class, one of the first things I always say is it's not my class, it's yours. We're going to make it as interactive as we can. And the person we wanted to start it off with has worked at the highest level of 5 teams, Andy, right? At least 5 teams, 4 or 5 teams.
A whole bunch of teams.
Many. His name is Andy Dolich. He lives in the Bay Area right now. He's going to talk a little bit about his background, where he is, but more importantly, we want to kind of get into the opportunities of today and obviously take a lot of questions for you guys in the next 45 minutes. The only thing we ask is when you're not speaking, you mute your line. I think we're going to try and do, if you want to raise your hand and ask a question so everybody's not stepping on each other. And when you ask a question, tell us who you are and where you're from. So we're going to get going. Andy, I turn it over to you.
Joe, thank you. And for the guys that put this together, I'm really appreciative of this. I'll try to be as helpful as I can. Very quickly, American University undergraduate, not very bright. Sat on the bench of the basketball team, wasted my parents' money, and in 1970 heard about the Ohio University Sports Management Program. First one of its kind in the country. Hard to believe today. There's 375 sports management programs. A lot of them shouldn't exist, but many of them should. Went to the Philadelphia 76ers as my first job. And what I like to do when we start this out is ask some ridiculous sports Jeopardy questions. So for those people who really think they know the NBA, I was administrative assistant to the general manager of the Sixers in 1972 and 1973. None of you were born. What record did the Sixers set in the 72-73 season, which has never been broken in the NBA and probably never will be broken? The hint is, I also worked for the Golden State Warriors, where I became president a bunch of years later. And a few years ago, they were 73-9. That's the hint. Anybody know the answer?
Were they 9 and 73?
Oh, bingo. Whoever said that wins this spectacular Ja Morant do-rag.
Oh, that is awesome.
That I will send to Joe or Matthew or the person directly.
So
I also work for the Memphis Grizzlies, so bingo.
What we'll do for the trivia is email your address to the Gmail account, and then we'll figure out how to coordinate it all. This way, Andy can clean his closet.
Thank you. And then I could break out and go to the post office where I'm not supposed to be. From the Sixers, I went to the Maryland Arrows of the short-term National Lacrosse League, which still exists to this day. Then 2 years with the Washington Capitals of the NHL. Then 2.5 years as general manager of the Washington Diplomats in the old North American Soccer League, the precursor to MLS. We actually did pretty well. We averaged about 25,000 people a game at RFK Stadium in DC. Got my big break and went to the Oakland A's. I was there for 14 years and helped the marketing side of that team. Since marketers are always selling something, this new book, which is just on the market, called Billy Ball by Dale Tafoya, not Moneyball, but Billy Ball, is on the market and tells the sort of amazing story of the Haas family buying the team from Charlie Finley and what went into that marketing. And actually, Billy Beane was a player, cut when I was there, and then went to work in the front office. After that, I went to the Golden State Warriors for a year. I was fired in the end of the first year of a 3-year contract by the dumbest MF that I ever worked for, a guy named Chris Cohan. And then I went to work for the Vancouver Grizzlies, who became the Memphis Grizzlies. I was with them for 7.5 years, and then went to the San Francisco 49ers as chief operating officer. And young Jed York, who is part owner of the team and CEO, decided he wanted a new COO in year 3 of my 5-year deal. One thing that all of you guys will learn is it's great to have a contract, because when your ass gets fired, they have to pay you the rest of the contract. That's what you should aspire to, a contract. And then I formed my own sports marketing company. Joe and I have had a chance to work together and launch some properties like TBT, the basketball tournament. I'm heavily involved in something called the FCFL, the Fan Controlled Football League, which will launch sometime in the future. I do some teaching at Stanford, and I yap to the media, as Joe knows. So I have 2 or 3 other trivia questions, and then we can get into your questions. There's so much happening today in the world and in the world of sports, and I'd be happy to sort of weigh in with a whole bunch of industry experience. So anybody know Robert Williams' stage name? You guys who love music, who's Robert Williams? I mean, me and the homies that I hang with, we listen to his music all the time. As a hint. Robert Williams? No? Okay. Forget Robert Williams. Incidentally, it's Meek Mill. You know that I'm a big Meek Mill fan. And the next one, Donald Glover. Who got me on Donald Glover?
Me.
Okay, what do you got, Lucas?
The Childish Gambino.
Donald Glover, who is it?
The Childish Gambino.
Lucas, you're not spending enough time working. Bingo. You win. You get this San Francisco Giants. I don't know what the hell it is. I think it's a kitchen mitt. Okay, you'll look good in it. The lowest scoring game in NFL history. What was it? Lowest scoring game in NFL history.
3-0 Monday Night Football, Steelers versus Dolphins.
Bingo. Who got that one?
My name is Huckleberry Jones.
Huckleberry. Perfect. Perfect, because you have this Tennessee Titans tablecloth.
Nice.
Oh, good for you. And one more. Name the only player in basketball history who's been on the McDonald's All-American team. He was College Player of the Year. He played on an NCAA championship team. He was an Olympic gold medalist. He was the #1 draft pick in the NBA. He was the Rookie of the Year. He made the All-Star team. He won an NBA championship. He's one of the 50 greatest players of all time, and he's in the Basketball Hall of Fame. And I'll just tell you, it's not Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or Michael Jordan.
Wilt Chamberlain?
Wilt Chamberlain. Excellent guess. There was no McDonald's All-American game at that time. Wrong. The guy's still alive, Joe, I think, right?
Yeah.
You know who it is, Joe?
No.
Okay, good. So you don't win a damn thing.
That's good. I don't want anything. I got plenty. Look at behind me.
David Robinson.
David Robinson. No. He played at Ohio State University.
Oh. Jerry Luke?
Yes. Lucas.
Yeah.
No, it can't be Greg Oden. It's not Greg Oden.
No, Greg Oden. Picked by the Memphis Grizzlies. What a dumb pick that was. Okay.
LeBron.
Incidentally, it's Jerry
I didn't
Lucas.
go to college.
Jerry Lucas. All right, so that's enough of that. Let's get into what we're here to talk about.
Sure.
So
Andy,
who's got the first question?
Why don't I start it off, Andy?
Sure.
We're obviously in very challenging times now. You've been through the recession, 9/11, numerous player strikes, I would imagine, in various places. What are some of the characteristics in terms of leaders that emerge from things like we're going on today, although obviously this is very unique?
Exactly. Can you happen to see that wall hanging over my shoulder there?
With
It
the
says
100
hundreds,
dead in huge.
hundreds dead in huge quake.
Right.
And on the bottom, sorry for this, but I have my tickets from the game, and you can't see it because of the light, but it's an original seismograph from the Loma Prieta quake. So I was the VP of Business Operations for the Earthquake World Series, which was the Giants and the A's. It happened at the start of Game 3. We didn't play for 10 days. There was multi-billion-dollar damage in Northern California. And to answer your question, Joe, it was the leadership of both organizations, Bob Lurie and Walter Haas, and the commissioner, Fay Vincent, which most people probably don't know his name on Zoom that we have going here. But Fay Vincent was a significant leader, and we met for 3 days, literally in candlelight at the St. Francis Hotel with the chiefs of police, all of the local medical authorities, the mayors of both cities, and made a decision that the World Series would come back in 10 days after the community had a chance to get its arms around all of the damage. What basically designates leaders to me is somebody that tells you what they don't know. Now, I won't get into politics, but there's a lot of debate in this country, and people come on and tell you they know everything. Great leaders, especially in trying times like this, will tell you what they don't know and will bring in the most significant experts in whatever the situation is, listen to them, have open and frank conversations, and then make tough decisions. You know, I look at, what was it, March the 13th, that Rudy Gobert tested positive, and Adam, before that, literally a few hours, the marching orders in the NBA were going to be games played without fans. And then very, very quickly, Adam Silver took a definitive decision. We're not doing that. We're postponing. And very, very quickly, the NHL, MLS, and others fell in line. I'm still trying to figure out exactly where the NFL is going. Maybe we can talk about that in a bit. But then you saw March Madness, the Olympics, I guess just yesterday, the day before, Wimbledon, the British Open, so all 4 majors are done. It takes somebody with guts instead of somebody that's just patting themselves on the back.
Mm-hmm. Great. Why don't we go to their questions now? And like I said, when you ask a question, put your hand up and tell us who you are and where you're from. Fire away.
If anyone from the audience has questions, they can start, and then if not, we have some questions to ask.
Whoever asks the first question gets a brand new BMW. I'll drive it to wherever you are. So
you guys can just unmute yourselves and then answer, or sorry, ask a question and then. Yeah.
So I'm Job Goddard. I go to American.
Go Eagles! Go Eagles!
Yeah, go Eagles! We had a tough end of the season this year, but I just wanted to ask real quick where the NFL is going. I mean, you mentioned that you wanted to talk about it a little bit maybe later.
Right.
But do you think that it's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing that the NFL is kind of forged ahead, trying to lead in some respects, trying to keep the world with a little bit of sports normalcy, as Roger Goodell put it? Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing for their media marketing longer term?
Right now, I'm not sure which one it is. One of the shortcomings that I see in the world of sports, having worked in the Big Four pro sports leagues and also worked in college for IMG, is that there doesn't seem to be a United Nations of sports. Everybody's going it their own way, looking over their shoulder, wanting to see what somebody else is going to do. And think about all the discussion about the NFL. What about college football? You know, what about Michigan Stadium, Ohio State, Auburn, Alabama, LSU? There's probably people lining up to tailgate already for the Auburn-Bama game. Are they out of their minds? I look at it this way. Nobody knows when And until we know when, even when the green light comes on, when those entities, as we talked about before, federal government, local leagues, when they push the button to say green, would you go to an 80,000 seat indoor stadium to see the New Orleans Saints? And I'm not picking on them, but let's look at what's happening in New Orleans. Even if you hear the green light 60 days from now, are you going to go there 4 or 5 months later with your 3 children?
I wouldn't, and I don't think anybody else will.
Saying no. And I think that this one, and we've talked about 9/11, the earthquake, the natural disasters, the one that we just had in Nashville, Katrina, I think it's important to understand that those were local traumas. 9/11 was global, but it was still the New York metropolitan area, the Pentagon, a field in Pennsylvania. Our quake was really Northern California. This is a global scenario which is killing people every day, and we've not gotten ahead of it. So on one hand, I think discussion about the draft and who's going to be the 4th round pick. I'm a Brooklyn-born, cynical, sarcastic son of a bitch. So I'm not jumping up and down, but I totally understand the reason for it. Like when Tom Brady signed with Tampa, I don't know whether he was drunk or not, but when he signed with Tampa, like, good. Lots of people talked about it, but the start of the season, training camp, what about players that test positive? Sean Payton's already tested positive. I don't see the NFL playing a regular season. And I do think that the NFL is sort of tiptoeing around and not taking the kind of strong leadership position that an Adam Silver's taken. Now, Roger Goodell said, hey, we're moving full speed ahead. That's what we're doing. I, for one, do not think that is the most strategically intelligent path.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Sure. Go Eagles.
Andy, Tim here. So with an unknown end date to this coronavirus, what do you think is the best way for sports to align and move forward, given that there's the level of uncertainty that there is?
And that is exactly it. As I talked about before, there's lots of smart people, and you guys on the line are smart people, and you're going to be charged with making decisions like this. Having never been through anything like this, there was no pandemic playbook any place. Definitely not in sports, but surely not in other institutions like our government, local. Think about high school, think about Little League. I think it's going to be gradual. And I think there has to be much more cooperation, which we seem to be having now on the governmental side. I'd like to see even more of that. Now I'm out of it, so I don't know if those meetings are going on with the commissioners of all the major sports leagues. And I don't just mean ours in North America. I mean the EPL, I mean the Olympic Committee, I mean the NCAA. I'd like to see them all work together as we bring the country back at whatever stages. I believe that this is going to be a staging process and not just everybody jumping into it in one fell swoop.
I have a question.
That one other thing I'd say to your question, every decision is not going to be perfect. But again, to the point of whether it's the high school football game with 800 or the NFL game with 80,000 or the college game with 50,000, I think people are going to be concerned most about their health and wellness, their neighbors, and whatever parameters are put in place to keep everybody safe. That you?
I'm Flynn Stapleton. I'm from Jacksonville, Florida. And so I have a question pertaining to like the MLB draft in a sort of sense. So the MLB hasn't canceled their season per se, but they have postponed it because, they have so many games that they really don't have to worry too much about their entire season being covered by this pandemic. So my question was, how is this going to affect their draft? Because the fact that they have their draft is basically based off high school players and college players, and the NCAA has already announced they're going to give spring players more eligibility.
Right. And Flynn, if I come back in an afterlife, can I have your name, Flynn Stapleton? Names of all time. But that is just what I was talking about. All of these groups aren't necessarily talking to each other. Does it seem fair to give those athletes another year of eligibility? It sure does to me. And you just saw how disappointed all those athletes would be. And some of those athletes, you know, in different sports are Olympic athletes. I think baseball has been a bit of a follower in this. Again, I'm a little bit of a broken record on Adam Silver, but I think Rob Manfred is just looking for this green light. And if you look at the draft, I think it's almost an inequitable position for those teams drafting, which the NFL has to deal with. You don't have that face-to-face, right? If you're the number 2 draft pick and you throw 98 with an incredible curveball, I know that, but I don't know you as a person. I probably haven't met with you enough time, and that's not going to happen now with social distancing and travel restrictions and who knows what we're going to see in the coming weeks and months. And I don't mean to be Nostradamus and say it's the end of the world, because it isn't, or at least I surely hope it isn't. But I think we need more of a level of cooperation. I don't see how baseball is going to play anything close to a regular season. And I also look at how important ticket sales are, having done it for 14 years in baseball and 40 plus years in other sports. Baseball depends as much on butts and seats as any other sport. Joe, I throw it to you. I think if any sport could move forward with just the games and no spectators, how would you rank the big 4 sports in ones that could do it?
It depends on the time of year. I think the outdoor sports are going to probably do better. Baseball is set up, if they wanted to come back whenever they came back in the summer, you could have everybody in Florida. You don't have to have them at their home stadiums. You know, I've heard different people talking about what basketball is going to do, move to remote locations. There was a story today about Las Vegas. You know, the biggest stadium, and again, it depends on what the goal is. If the goal is to play games and get people watching or using a second screen to be involved, which would satisfy a lot of opportunities and keep people healthy. Basketball has the smallest group, and you could do that in remote locations. When you talk about bringing 60, 70, 80,000 people into a stadium, even if you could do it, I don't know how many of those people are going to show up, first of all, like what Andy was just saying.
Right.
So, you know, hockey's got some natural disadvantages. Time of year. I think the one thing that plays into the NBA's favor is that there's no Olympics now. So you're going to have a summer where there's going to be a void for part of it. Now, again, all of this is kind of the great unknown right now. You know, you hear rumblings about, you know, MLS still hasn't removed games from their schedule from the middle of May. So it's still, if you go to an MLS schedule, there's still games for the middle of May. What those look like, where they're going to play them, and how it plays out. The one thing that I think is interesting that people have talked about, that teams keep talking back to, is they're waiting to see what happens with the Chinese Basketball Association. So they were supposed to start play tomorrow. They pushed it back another 2 weeks. And that gives, if you're the NBA, that gives you runway to see what the environment would be like to play in a facility with no fans, but keep your players healthy. The other thing that is really important and how they get access to it are the fast tests. So yesterday on Long Island, they tested the 2 5-minute tests. The results weren't great. There were a lot of false positives, but they proved the concept. So having everybody
and a vaccine, or at least the promise of a vaccine within the fourth quarter or the first quarter of next year And, you know, you look at where leagues are making money. I mean, the NFL literally, I think, Joe, you could correct me, but they're the only league that could go through a season without any fans in the stadium and still make money.
Yeah.
On the billions of dollars, the multiple billions of dollars that they have in guaranteed broadcast contracts. Baseball, you know, it's done well media-wise, but as you said, there's a lot of people. And even if you're playing a game, how many people do you need just as a basic unit to work the stadium? It's not like the players just come in with officials and that's it. There's hundreds of people, even at a skeleton crew, that have to work in an arena or a football game just to pull it off.
Yep. I think, you know, the other thing, we should get back to the questions, but
Yeah.
when you think about the NFL, they just sold broadcast rights this week to a game. So
Right.
it's obvious that there's an opportunity to figure out how to do it. You know, we're going to see, though. I mean, where you play them, how you play them, you know, how many people can get there, you know, we're going to find out.
Everybody knows what color the fluid is that runs through the veins of sports. Everybody knows that color, right? It ain't red, it's green.
Yeah.
So these entities will do anything they can to figure out, as long as they have some sort of thumbs up, to get back to play in some form or fashion, but it's going to look different. And playing games with no fans, you know, we will see that lack of emotion and how that affects the players. Next question.
I have a question. My name's Kyle. I'm from LA. And this isn't necessarily like a coronavirus related question, but it was just touching on something you were mentioning. So recently, Trevor Lawrence tried to start some fundraiser for coronavirus, and the NCAA, they walked it back, but they shut it down right at the beginning. What's your thoughts on how the NCAA is basically policing everything that college athletes do?
Well, we know, Kyle, that name, image, and likeness, you know, NIL, which was and is a major point of contention, is going to happen. In times like this, I think you got to read the room. I call it RTR. In that instance that you brought up, they didn't read the room that well. I mean, when you have athletes that are trying to do the best that they can do. I was watching some news program where a fourth grader is basically sewing surgical masks. I mean, that's what makes this doable, that it's bottom up, it's not necessarily top down. And when you look, I think Kevin Love was one of the first in NBA that said, I'll help the hourly workers, then Zion and a number of others. So to your question, Kyle, I think you have to give a lot of latitude in what is the normal sort of military view of the NCAA in restrictions, because of what we're going through as communities. And there is no stronger community than a college. You have that in your DNA for life, mostly, unless you're expelled, then probably you don't give a shit. But most of us keep that college in our hearts forever. And I think you have to salute the men and women and that are trying to make a difference, even if it's a few bucks. So I think the NCAA is a bit delusional in what they were trying to do.
Hi, my name is Calder. I'm from New York City. And my question, I guess, is, so like there's been a lot of talk about like specifically the MLB making adjustments to the game structure, like talk about like 7-inning games, you know, playing double headers, just general stuff like that, kind of big changes. What like financial implications might changes like that have?
Well, it's going to come down, and incidentally, I'd just say, Joe, and I won't go off, I'll come back to Calder, but what happened to names like Andy and Joe? You guys have the coolest names of all time. We got Flynn, we got Kyle, we got Calder. Like, I salute you guys, or your parents. You didn't name yourself, so good for them. Sorry, I went off the track. the money that Major League Baseball is looking at in your question, Calder, is how do we keep some of it coming into the bank? So whether it is doubleheaders, whether, as Joe said, let's go to Florida or let's go to Arizona, let's get something going so that we can generally develop some traction. And in all of these sports, we'll put football aside for a second, both college and pro, they want to get some sort of stake in the ground of traction, not necessarily for this year, Calder, but for next year. And, you know, if one of the commissioners, if Adam and Gary Bettman and Don Garber decide, you know what, for the good of the country and all that, we're not playing any games. And I'm not saying they're going to do that. I have no inside information. That will create a domino effect to others. But I would say, and Joe deals with a number of these decision makers on a daily basis, they're trying to assess what is right at the proper time. And anybody that steps across the line and goes for the money before, I think is going to get slapped down pretty soundly by the fan base.
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Mia.
Hi, Mia.
Hi. Can you give an example of which business hasn't been exploited yet and would be a good choice for our world today for future investment, possibly?
Well, Mia, you look very comfortable.
I am. Thank you.
It's very cool.
Don't say fan control football, Andy.
I will not say fan control football league. I will not say TBT. Well, this might seem a bit old school, but I look at the world of soccer, football, and the rest of the world, and basketball that still have significant growths, both in this country and around the world. And Joe mentioned the CBA, which is not the players' agreement, but the Chinese Basketball Association. We see the growth of both of them in terms of you all want jobs in sports. Those of you who speak more than one language, there's great opportunity around the world for both of those sports. I would also say that college sports, because most schools have at least 20 sports, and they are becoming much more sophisticated than they've ever been in the last few years on hiring people that know how to market, that know public relations, that know analytics and metrics, and aren't just sort of the old realm of the former volleyball coach becoming the athletic director. I would also say that individual sports that you see people enjoying themselves, the outdoor sports, the X Games and all that are growing on a global basis because people are not necessarily interested in spending $600 a ticket to see a game. They're more interested in their own health and wellness. You know, the success of something like the Drone Racing League. And then which sports are going to be able to come back? You know, I think golf is well situated because of its social distancing to a certain extent. And there's also going to be a tremendous upheaval. There'll be people leaving the world of sports just because of what's happened to go do something else. And there's going to be opportunities for each and every one of you to hopefully replace some of those people that are walking away.
What about women's sports, Andy?
I think that is the greatest opportunity. I would just tell you this. I teach courses at Stanford School of Continuing Studies. So it's Stanford, but you don't have to do that right. And I had a course slated for this spring, gender equity in sports, in how women can get positions and basically run their own businesses in sports. And I didn't have enough people to sign up. I've taught 10 courses there, and this is the only one that I didn't have the minimum number of signups. It would have been killed anyway because they bagged the spring courses. I look at a team, and I'm biased here, I look at the Portland Timbers, the most successful women's professional sports team in North America. that very few people know about. They average 20,000 a game paid. They
The
have
thorns in them.
season ticket holders, and it's not through the brilliance of my son, I can tell you that. They've just hit it. And, you know, the WNBA has struggled. The National Women's Soccer League, you know, has struggled other than the Timbers. That one is going to be, I think, facilitated by sponsors. Having large multi-billion-dollar sponsors who make their money selling to women, supporting and broadcasting those leagues to make them successful. I think that's the next step.
Cool. Next question, guys.
Hi, I have a question. My name is Huckleberry Jones. I'm from Los Angeles, and I'm actually
Huck. Yeah.
I'm going to Ohio Sports Management next year for college, actually. So
Congratulations to you.
Thank
Did you
you.
pay anybody off to get in?
No.
Great.
Thank you. Yeah, my question's a little bit off topic from everybody else, but Joe always talks about finding a niche and sort of taking advantage of it. And I was wondering what your sort of niche was and how you bounce between jobs and what you sort of take to job interviews and certain skills that you have.
Great question.
Thank you. Is it Huck? Can I call you Huck, or is
Yeah,
it
that works.
Huckleberry? Okay. So Huck, seriously, I'd say sales, 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 and sales. Now that sounds boring in the days of analytics and metrics and slicing and dicing, and everybody wants to be the general manager. I totally get that. But if you look at all teams in sports, at least on the player ops side, and I'm not saying that's not a place to hunt for men and women, but they might be hiring 2 or 3 people at a time, where sales and marketing is hiring 20, 30, 40. I think Scott O'Neill in Philly at one time had 80 people or more in the 76ers sales operation. The reason I say that is if you prove early on, and I guess I was lucky enough for the shittiest basketball team ever, that I sold some of that product. And because of that, season tickets to a team that was 9-73. Are you kidding me? That's an easy way to get into the door. But I never stopped. The nose, I tried to make roll off my back. It wasn't always easy, but I made the next call. So to answer your question, Huck, to me, it's the ability to generate revenue and build networks. There are a number of people in the industry, I won't name them, Joe won't name them, but their thought bubble above their head says this: hi, have I told you that I'm the smartest person in the room? Hi, have I told you I'm the smartest person in the room? Yeah, you have. I don't give a shit. Do you do anything? Can you sell anything? Can you make something happen? Do you get along with people? Do you know how to fight? And when the fight is over, I'm not talking physically, can you be on the team and get things done? So I would tell you that I could never have envisioned, you know, having the life I had. I had 2 older brothers way smarter than me. My parents were crying when I went to Ohio U because they didn't know sports from shit. And they went, all right, 2 out of our 3 sons were successful. 1's a bum. We'll deal with it. But it's the sales aspect, seriously, and the ability that your network can never, never be too large. And, you know, I don't just say this because Joe's my friend and he's on this call, but every day Joe's building his network, and every day I'm trying to build my network. So does that help to answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. That was super good advice. Thank you so much.
Let's take a couple more. Who's next? Matthew, you want to take one of your questions?
Yeah, sure. If no one else has any more, we can start asking. So,
oh, wait a second. Those pictures over my shoulder, you can't see. Up in the corner, that's me with a 35-pound king salmon that I actually caught. The guy in the middle that you can't see too well is the late James Gandolfini. You know him as Tony. And then that's a Sports Illustrated cover with Walt Frazier and Jerry West. And I was lucky enough to work with Jerry West for 5 years at the Memphis Grizzlies. Logo of the NBA.
So currently you work or you have your own consulting company. How do you feel that you guys provide like a unique perspective compared to other companies out there?
Well, like I like to say, when people say, who do you work for? And I go, I only work for one asshole. And they go, who's that? And I go, well, Matthew, that would be me. So I wouldn't overstate what I'm doing. Again, I have a few clients. I try to be out there and be available to groups like this to teach and to try to pay it forward. I'm very proud of my Ohio University network. And Huck, I look forward to you being in there. I'll send you the secret decoder ring when you get there. And I've done some writing. I've started to write. This book is out there, 20 Secrets of Success for NCAA student athletes who won't go pro, available on Amazon. I wrote it with my colleagues, Rick Burton, who's at Syracuse, great guy, Heather Lawrence, Norm O'Reilly, and Jake Hirschman. And it gives you a lot. It's not just if you were an athlete, it's where you're at and what are some of the lessons that you could follow that basically gets you ahead. All of you, if you have a strategy, are going to get jobs in sports. That's hard enough. Developing a career, Matthew, that's the harder part. And that's when having a strategy, having situations like this, calling on your friends and colleagues, I would tell you, get comfortable being uncomfortable, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Cool, right? We're all fly. We all got it. Well, no, we don't. But if you're not comfortable being uncomfortable, that's going to be a shortcoming. I always want to have something flying around in my stomach before I have a big presentation, or if I don't know it, as we talked about before, I want to find somebody in my network that can help me, and also somebody that's not going to bullshit me, somebody that's going to tell me the truth. Like, that's the dumbest freaking idea I ever heard. It'll never work.
Right.
Okay, now I might not agree with that. I want somebody to tell me that instead of, yeah, boss, great, I'll do it. Nah.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I think Jadav had one question. If you want.
Hi, I'm Jadav. I'm from Los Angeles. I was wondering if you could tell us about the FCFL and kind of the challenges you've faced so far in building a new football league and kind of what it is and why you think it can work in today's sports economy.
Well, thank you, JD, and I'm glad you got the check for $25 that I sent you to ask the question. That's brilliant. So FCFL, most people don't know about it. What they know about is the XFL, which was put on hold. They probably know of the AAF, the Alliance of American Football, which had all the money in the world until they went bankrupt in week 5. The FCFL stands for Fan Controlled Football League. And it's indoor football, so it's not 11 on 11. We actually did an experiment 2 years ago in Salt Lake City. The owners had a team called the Salt Lake City Screaming Eagles. I'm sure many of you have Screaming Eagles swag. And it gives fans the ability to actually make every single decision, including real-time play calling in the game. Now, we were supposed to launch in Las Vegas this past June, a year ago in June, but we didn't have the money. We didn't have the full investment. And then we looked at this summer. We weren't quite there. Then COVID hit, and that was the end of that. We will launch an 8-team league. All the teams will play at Caesars Entertainment in sort of a biodome that we're creating. And fans will have a chance to select the players, the coaches, the names, the logos. And it is not like anything I've seen before. And the deal is, these are not avatars. This is not a fantasy league. These are real players. And, you know, arena football's been around for a long time. It went south, but the IFL still exists. And we're hoping to break through next year. If you have any questions, just go to FCFL and the Fan Control Football League, and you can start getting involved later today.
Thank you.
Do anything else out there, or are we in the red zone?
Can I actually ask a follow-up question on that, if you wouldn't mind?
Sure.
So, if it's going to be take place at Caesars Entertainment, are they a silent partner in the whole thing? And is there?
No,
you know,
actually, I'm glad you brought that up. No, they're not. We're just doing the location there. One area that we didn't get to, and I think maybe where you were going, is the whole concept of legalized betting in sports.
that is where I was going with it.
Okay,
and kind of
I
how
feel
you
like, yeah.
see that going.
We will, we don't have it layered in right now, but we will. And you look at what every other professional sports league is looking at. And I'm happy that you brought that up because of the progress that a lot of leagues have made, at least in conversation, and local states approving legalized gaming on professional sports. That is all, you know, shut down immediately, and that is going to take a while to get back. And it's also going to take a while to really understand the millions and billions of dollars that are bet. I think the number at last Super Bowl was $5 billion bet on that one game, 98% of it illegal. And there's a lot of work to be done. And if I'm the star quarterback who won that game, I'm going, wait a second, $5 billion was bet on this game? What's my cut?
Yeah, I think there's a definite, discussion to be had as to how to keep the morality in it.
Yes.
And kind of where they go with that for, in all leagues.
Exactly.
Especially
Because
in the lower paying leagues that might generate a lot of profit, like college football, for example, who are making some progress with the image and likeness stuff.
Exactly. But once it's dirty, right? Once it's dirty or there's a major scandal, wow. You know, that's like inoperable cancer. That's really bad.
Well,
thanks.
So in wrapping up, two things, Andy. Where can people follow you, find you, especially your unique Twitter handle? And then you touch a little bit about skills. As most of these guys and women are high school age or going into college or just starting college, what are one or two of the things other than sales and a second language that they should be looking for and that they should take advantage of? And then how do they find you?
Yeah. Well, you can find me. At Cofish, and Cofish is KOU, and it stands for Sandy Koufax, who is my sports hero, one of the greatest pitchers in baseball history, lefty for the Brooklyn and LA Dodgers, and Fish because I love to fish at Cofish. You can Google the crap out of me. I yap a lot, as Joe knows, in the media. I've done a lot of interviews in the last 3 or 4 weeks about what we've talked about tonight. A few of them with as many curse words as tonight. Through Joe or Matt or anybody else, if you have questions, I'm on LinkedIn and all forms of social media. Just say that you were on the call tonight. I'm pretty good at getting back to people. I surely have time to do it now. And to Joe's point, you want to become a Swiss Army knife, if anybody knows what that is. You want to have as many tools as you can. And I mentioned, we have analytics and metrics as a tidal wave. We have sales and marketing. We have public relations, digital communication. Give everything a shot. Now, in the schools that you're at, give it a shot. Even if it's not something you like to do, go do it and fail. Maybe you'll find something that you like. And you want to be sort of the outlier. You want to be somebody that has so many skills that an organization can't do without you, as opposed to just one skill, no matter what that might be. Because in today's world, I want to be on SEAL Team 6. I want to have all kinds of abilities, and I don't just want to be the guy in the spiffy uniform. Does that answer the question, Joe?
Cool. Well, thanks again, Andy. So guys, we're going to try and do this again next Thursday, same time. I think, Matthew, now we've got everybody's email addresses. So our goal is to keep growing the pie, not to keep splitting it up. So tell your friends, tell your parents, tell your classmates, help us get the word out. Obviously, we're starting to build a following on Twitter. We'll let you know probably the beginning of next week via email, and we'll share across as many emails as we can who our guest is going to be next week. There's a bunch of people have asked. I just want to schedule them out, but we wanted to try the first one. And I wanted to thank you all for joining us tonight. We're going to keep it going, and hopefully when sports is back, we'll keep doing it. And
Joe?
Yep.
Yeah, I would say one more thing. Sorry to jump in here, but sports has always fulfilled the role, and it will here too, as sort of being the place and the undertaking and the celebration. It's our last town square that most people get along in a civil manner. And sports is going to serve this role. As we talked about earlier, it's just, we're in the middle of it. We're not just coming in after. And so anything that you have, concepts, ideas, you should share with your friends. You should share it with industry professionals because you see what's happening now. Innovation is turning the tide in some communities. If they don't have something, they'll create it right there. So sport will play an incredibly important role. It's just been knocked off its equilibrium, but it'll get it back.
Yep.
You can make a difference in making that happen.
Yep. So let us know. This is your group. So we would love to get your input as to how we can keep growing this, what you'd like to hear from, who you'd like to hear from. And like I said, hopefully, even when sport is back before too long, we'll keep doing this as much as we can. We hope we provided a resource for you tonight. Thanks for coming. Everybody stay safe. Stay in touch, and hopefully we'll be able to do this again next Thursday, same time.